Our investigation was to determine whether or not Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison knew about the fraud, and the answer is a definitive yes.
America, that right there just ended Tim Walz's political career. House Oversight Chair James Comer didn't dance around it. Yes, Walz knew about the fraud and let it happen anyways.
But it's clear there was a massive failure of oversight and, quite frankly, a failure of leadership. One wonders whether either of you should bear some personal responsibility for the billions of dollars siphoned off by fraudsters under your noses.
While Walz was ignoring whistleblowers and letting billions and billions of dollars disappear, guess who's getting stuck with the bill? You are!
The Minnesota Department of Revenue estimates property taxes across the state are going up 7% this year. That is nearly $1 billion.
Who pays for Democrat mismanagement? Taxpayers. Every single time. What is up, guys? Tyson DeLaCruz here. Thank you so much for rocking with me. Let me show you exactly how Timmy Tampon Walz orchestrated one of the most brazen cover-ups in American political history. Comer's investigation blew the lid off of everything. They interviewed career state employees, registered Democrats, by the way, who've been screaming about the fraud for years, and we've been covering on this channel for months. These weren't partisan hacks. These were people who voted for Walz and still couldn't stomach what they were seeing.
We brought in all the whistleblowers from Minnesota. These were career state employees. Almost all of them were registered Democrats. They've been blowing the whistle about fraud for years. They testified under oath in our transcribed interviews that they knew about the fraud. They had repeatedly warned both Governor Walz and Attorney General Ellison, and they were told to stand down.
Notice what happened here. They didn't just ignore the warning signs. They actively shut them down. Stand down, they said. That's what you tell someone when you know what's happening and you want it to continue. Plain and simple.
Every state employee I met with, seems to me, has a very strong commitment to helping solve this problem. They've been forthcoming. They've been cooperative.
Oh. Now they want to cooperate after billions and billions of dollars disappear and Fed threats in regards of cutting off funding. That's like your teenager promising to clean the room after you've already grounded them. Too late, Timmy. And speaking of people who suddenly care about accountability, remember what I told you about Democrats only move when they're in the corner? Watch what happens when Walz gets asked directly about the transformation plan. So Tim Walz's brilliant solution to fraud his administration allowed is to give more power to the Department of Human Services. You know, this is the same agency where the fraud was festering. This is genius.
Well, Governor Tim Walz wants to attack fraud, he says, with some major changes to the way Minnesota handles Medicaid. He'd centralize administration and oversight in the Department of Human Services.
Okay, maybe this is the same game plan that he used to get tampons in the boys' locker rooms. Identify the problem he created, propose a solution that makes it worse, and then act like he's doing Minnesota a favor.
The Maxis system is grossly outdated. It provides immense hours of frustration for really talented people trying to do the work.
Wait, you're telling me Minnesota's been running Medicaid on technology from the 1980s? And Walz just now mentioned this. How long has he been governor for? How many billions and billions of dollars disappeared while he was playing with software that required a floppy disk to operate? Those of you that don't know what a floppy disk is, look it up. For my youngsters out there.
Republican Representative Kristen Robbins blasted DHS Commissioner Shireen Gandhi for being a no-show. Robbins says the committee has invited the commissioner twice.
After this commissioner running this dumpster fire, too busy to testify. Been invited twice, hasn't showed up once. That's what accountability looks like under Timmy Tampon Walz. Avoid it completely. Now here's where it goes from corrupt to criminal. While Timmy Tampon Walz was telling whistleblowers to stand down and letting fraud run absolutely wild, Minnesota was racking up a bill, and guess who's going to pay for it?
In Blaine, where you live, it's gone up 15%, 15%, and 10% over 3 years. And Blaine is a diverse community. You know, one of the things I just want to ask is, like, how are people, what do you hear from your constituents?
A lot of my constituents are scared whether they're going to be able to stay living in their homes.
That's $1 billion in property tax increases. And guess who's getting the hardest? Seniors with fixed income, working families already crushed by inflation, people who followed the rules and paid their taxes, while Timmy Tampon Walz's administration let criminals steal theirs.
The overwhelming number of Minnesotans agree that tips should not be taxed and overtime should not be taxed. So this would be a way to conform with the federal taxes, which is beneficial in its own right, plus to provide some relief.
Look at the irony here. Republicans are trying to cut taxes on tips and overtime, things Trump already did at a federal level. And Walz is over here hijacking up property taxes to 7% to cover for the fraud that he let happen.
This violence does not make us safer. It does not address fraud, waste, and abuse. It doesn't help families with health care, does not grow or build small businesses, and it certainly, as we're continuing to discuss, is not preventing the kind of fraud that Republicans are discussing here today.
And there it is. The Democrat playbook in action. When confronted about billions and billions of dollars in fraud, pivot. Just pivot to Trump immigration enforcement. Don't talk about the whistleblowers you silence. Don't explain why your DHS commissioner won't testify. Just blame ICE and hope your voters are dumb enough to fall for it. Now, James Comer says the evidence is definitive. Walz knew. Ellison knew. They ignored the warning signs. So what happens next?
With all my years of experience, accountability is elusive because what is accountability? Exposure is partially accountability, but you want to see people in handcuffs. You want to see the money returned. And to that extent, I think James Comer is doing a fantastic job. He is exposing these things. Now the big question is, what is the Department of Justice going to do? Because if you have whistleblowers with no political bent other than trying to do the right thing, and you have elected officials knowingly allowing fraud to go on, as the allegation is, what is accountability going to be?
That's your answer, America. Elusive.
Its accountability is elusive.
And you and I get audited by the IRS for $600. But Tim Walz can let billions and billions of dollars disappear. And his biggest consequence is having to testify before Congress, where Democrats will defend him anyways.
Walz and Ellison condemned fraud and said the state is working to do what it can to find, arrest, and convict fraudsters of any kind.
Oh, they condemn fraud. How brave of them. They condemn the one thing that they allowed to happen. That's like an arsonist condemning a fire after burning down the house. America, here's what Comer's investigation just proved. Tim Walz didn't fail to stop the fraud. He chose to let it happen. Whistleblowers, his own employees, Democrats who voted for him, came to his office with evidence. They went to Ellison, and both of them said, stand down. Now Walz wants to transform the Department of Human Services by giving more control, even though that's where the fraud was happening. He's using 1980s technology as an excuse, even though he had years to fix it. And his DHS commissioner won't even show up to testify. Meanwhile, Minnesota seniors are terrified that they'll lose their homes because property taxes jump up 7%, nearly $1 billion to cover the mess Walz created by protecting Somalia fraudsters. But here's the part that hardly anybody's missing. Walz dropped out of his re-election race. So, in my opinion, he's going to avoid all consequences. He quit, the first sitting governor in modern history to surrender because the fraud got so bad, he obviously couldn't govern anymore. That's not a scandal. That is a collapse without consequences. And Minnesota voters, they're stuck paying for it with a 7% tax increase, while the criminals, the Somalia pirates, the Somalia criminals that Walz protected walk free. What did I tell you? Follow the money every single time. Let me know what you think about this. Drop it down in the comment section down below. Smash the like button if you kindly would. Share, subscribe, and as always, guys, I'll catch you on the next one.